to Investigation Check, our regular, irregular interview show where we dive into the lives of the geek creators you want to know about. Tonight we have owner of Leatherman Games, creator of Glitter Hearts, The Mystery Business, and aspiring Pokemon master with his new creation, I'm going to say this, I'm going to fuck this up already. Domeskai Trainers. I say it.
Domeskai
Thank
Tamers.
you.
Yeah.
I don't know why that was my tongue up. Greg Leatherman, how you doing, Greg?
I am doing well. Thank you very much.
Awesome. First and foremost, why don't you go ahead and let everyone know where they can find you?
So I do a lot of things. You can find all of my games and stuff at leatherman.games, which is my gaming website. Then you can listen to me do actual play content on a show called Very Random Encounters. It's an actual play show that I've been doing for 8 years now. And then I have a new podcast where we talk about board games and tabletop games called Game Mechanics that I do with my friend Logan.
Nice. And all that is on your link tree?
Yep, everything's on my link tree.
Awesome.
You can find all sorts of wonderful things on my link tree, including how to get to my current game that's going to go live in Kickstarter in September. So
Okay.
please go back it. Please back my game.
Thought I had this set up, but apparently I messed that up. And I'm just messing it all up today. There we go. Okay. So link tree is in the chat. All right, you ready to get started tonight, Greg?
Absolutely.
All right. I want you to take me on paint me a word picture, take me back in time to when you just fresh out of the womb, little 7-pound, 8-ounce Greg. Didn't like that visual.
I don't know actually how big I was. I don't know that I know that. I've never bothered to ask.
But you're fresh out in the world. What is kind of your first introduction into like geekdom? Is it a show? Is it a book?
So I'm old. I was born in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And so TV and everything was very different back in the day. And I was a Super Friends super fan. Like I loved the Super Friends cartoon show. It was my Saturday morning cartoon thing. And then in 1977, a little movie hit called Star Wars.
I'm familiar with it.
That would plot the rest of my life because it was the most incredible thing I'd ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, I was 7, but a lot of other people agreed with me. And so it's hard to explain to people who weren't sort of in the 70s how slow TV and movies were. Like, there would be huge scenes of like, okay, well, we're going to drive to the neighbors. We're going to drive down. And they would be like getting into the car. And then, they'd do the drive because somehow they felt like they had to like show and explain everything. And compared to all that, Star Wars was so fast, which makes me laugh now because people are like, oh this movie is so slow. And I'm like, yeah, but it wasn't at the time. Like, you don't understand what a just feat of how much it changed everything. And so, I mean, me and my brother were just obsessed. We've remained obsessed our entire lives. Like, Star Wars is my thing.
Okay.
It's like my number one fandom. And so along came like the 80s, and my cousin did what cousins often do, is say, hey, I have this game that I want to teach you all. And unlike most people, the game that he taught us wasn't Dungeons and Dragons. It was Gamma World.
Okay.
And so my first RPG ever was the post-apocalyptic survival, your characters are meant to die Gamma World, where you're all weird mutants and everything in the world is strange. And we played that, and it was like eye-opening what this game was, and we could just do anything, and there were rules, but they didn't really matter all that much. We were just having fun. And then since I was such a huge superhero fan, like I loved Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, which was a huge one for me. I love Super Friends. Uh, for my birthday, I got the Marvel Superheroes TTRPG, which still remains my all-time favorite superhero game. They did it right in that game. They've never touched it since. Nothing comes close to how good that game is. And then because I was into those, I got like the beginner basic sets of Dungeons and Dragons, in
Okay.
which the rules were, even then I'm like, these rules are too complicated and they're dumb and I don't want to learn them, and it's just not letting us do what we want. So mostly my friends and I just ignored the rules, and we were just like,
Just telling
look through the
stories.
book and be like, this is a cool sword. I have that now. This is a bad villain. We killed that now. Um, but mostly I was like, I would buy the modules for Marvel superheroes, and they had a lot of them. And we would just play those because that system was so easy and so fun that like we would take breaks to do other things, but then it would always come back to Marvel. And then in high school, I just got busy doing high school stuff.
Hmm.
So I was a theater kid, I was in choir, I was in rehearsals all the time. So I just didn't really have time in high school to do a lot of TTRPG stuff. I didn't have a good group. I mean, I had friends that sort of played it, but also it was tough to just be like, well, I'm at school. I would get to school at 6 in the morning and I would leave at 6 at night. And then I would go home
Right.
to, I would go home and eat and then do my homework. And then, depending on the show, if we were doing double rehearsal nights, I would go to school at 6 in the morning and I would leave school at 9 p.m. at night because I was there all the time.
Oh,
And then on weekends, I'm like, I don't want to do anything. I'm tired.
yeah.
I all I do is school. So in college, when I went into the university, I went to the U of M, University of Minnesota. I met a group of people, all of us theater kids, and you have a lot more time in college. And I was like, "Do y'all like superheroes? Because I have this game."
I have a
And
book.
so we played Marvel superheroes a lot
Okay.
because it just was a super great fun game. And then again, I had second edition D&D, but I was like, again, these rules are dumb and they're too complicated and whatever. I don't want to play it. And so around that time, things got edgier. And so werewolf and vampire and mage, that system came out. And while those books are deeply, deeply, deeply problematic, the system that they created was actually, I'm like, this is complicated, but not terribly so.
Uh-huh.
Like, you're just rolling a bunch of dice, and then if you get a 10 on it, you succeeded, and if you don't, you fail. And like, that's easy. You're just counting up pips and then rolling die. Uh, and so we played a lot of all of those where we tried to combine everything together and be like, just play whatever you want. And I did that for a long time. Um, and then I've always had a lot of RPGs. Like, you know, whenever people know, oh, you like this thing, and they don't know what gifts to give you, they will buy you that thing.
Okay.
So all through like high school, even though I couldn't play them a lot, like people would buy me Star Frontiers. They bought the James Bond RPG, which was actually pretty decent. Again, Gamma World came out. They would buy me D&D stuff. They would buy just anything that was like, this is an RPG, and they don't know what to get the kid, and they don't want to get me theater stuff because like, well, he has two things: theater and games. Because they knew I bought everything Star Wars on my own. Like
Uh-huh.
the minute I had extra money, I'm like, well, I'm buying this figure, and I'm buying this, and I'm buying this. Like between my brother and I, we just buy all the Star Wars stuff. So that was never a safe gift. And so like we got the Star Wars West End Games version
Uh-huh.
of stuff. And so I just over time just have this massive library of role-playing games, part of which you can see behind me. Like this is this is a small amount because there's a bunch in the basement where I'm like they gotta go somewhere. They cannot be here. Uh and so a bunch of my, I made a bunch of great friends in college and we would play TTRPGs on the weekends and tell our own stories. And even when we all sort of got normal jobs, we would continue playing them. And then third edition D&D came out and I was like, this is better.
Yeah.
This is more easy to sort. The rules have been sort of demathed a little bit. But third edition was horribly unbalanced. Like that was just a ridiculous game. Like there was no reason not to play a cleric because cleric was the most broken, still remains the most broken of the third edition things. Like it just was broken. Like it can do everything and wear heavy armor. Like this doesn't not it's not how you design a game. Uh and same with like 3.5.
Hmm.
And then fourth edition came out and at that time I was heavily into World of Warcraft and
Okay.
so fourth edition made a lot of sense. Like you are talking MMO language in a TTRPG setting. And if they had managed to get the software developed that they needed for that game, I think we would still be playing fourth edition to this day.
Wow,
Like
okay.
it balanced everything out. It gave everybody something to do that also leveled with their levels. So like wizards never really outpaced fighters. Like that's always sort of the thing is like fighters start out great and then plummet and because they can do what? 3 actions and it's all attacking and that's all they can do.
Right.
And wizards are like, well, I can bend the universe and blow up a star and make an entire banquet of food. Like
Yeah.
the power levels are so ridiculous between the two of what they could do. And there was a lot of redefining those roles in fourth edition. Like a lot of people did not like that wizards became crowd control, but that's what they were good at. But
Hmm.
people were like, well, I want my wizards to blow up the world. And it's like, well, that's not what they're doing in this edition. And a lot of people really hated that. I'm like, no, it actually gave everybody something important to do that was unique to everybody else. But because they expected to have software and they didn't get it for very bad reasons, it was so fiddly. It was hard to keep on top of everything.
Okay.
Like so many abilities gave, okay, this person has a -2, and this one creature has a -3, and this one's paralyzed for this turn. And there were so many fiddly bits that you had no good way of tracking them.
Right.
And so it was just tough to play without some sort of assistance. And the assistance never came. And so they tried to fix it, but it was too late at that point, right? Like the fourth edition hatred ban was strong. Pathfinder was like, well, we're just going to make 3.75 D&D and call it Pathfinder.
Yeah.
And we're not really going to change anything and we're not really going to fix anything. We're going to sort of fix a couple of things, but not really. And
Hmm.
we're going to be actual competition. Put that in quotes because they're really not. I mean, they are, but they're not. They're not. And so 5e came out and that was just massive. Like it fixed a bunch of problems for people.
Right.
Uh it also didn't sort of fill in a rule for everything that like Pathfinder does.
Right. Right.
And so if you're not comfortable with I don't know, make a decision, like 5e feels very squishy to play. Like you really sort of need to have a vision of how you want that to be, and you kind of have to be okay with people making judgment calls because there's not going to be a rule for it, and
Right.
there's not an economy, and you get a lot of gold and you have nothing to spend it on. And so you kind of have to make things up. Um, but then in sort of that time period, because at this point, I ended when 5e came out, I started doing podcasting because the first podcast that I was doing was an actual play called Mythical, which was turning Pokemon stuff in the D&D world and setting it in the past. And so I got sort of my first actual play stuff, kind of hacking together Pokemon stuff shoved into D&D 5th edition, which is a terrible idea, but it was an okay idea at the time because 5e was very new and it was very, I would say it's easy to mod, but it was easier
Right.
to modify than most other things. Like making a whole class from nothing and coming up with 20 levels, like you could just steal from all the other classes. Like you just sort of had to have like, this is roughly the power level. What happens at 3? Um, and so I started doing that, and then that sort of launched what would become Very Random Encounters, because we only met, like we only recorded like once every 4 months for that show. Like we just do this big stint of recording,
Okay.
and then that would be divided up, and then we would do nothing. And a bunch of us were like, we really enjoy playing games on a more regular basis. Uh, so we started Very Random Encounters, which is my actual play podcast. And we didn't have an idea of what we wanted to do at first. We're like, what is sort of our gimmick? And I said offhanded, like, I don't really care what it is, but I don't kind of want to do the thing that a lot of people do, which is like random character generation.
Yeah.
And my friends were like, counterpoint, what if we randomized everything? And I was like, okay, well, what does that look like? And they're like, no, we randomize everything that we can. We randomize it and then see what comes out of it. So the show was born out of the GM randomizes plot lines, places, names, everything. They go to a random generator and say, okay, what's the storyline for this season? They randomly generate it. And then the first episode of every season is us rolling to find out who our character is.
Okay.
And then we play the game.
That sounds like so much. It sounds simple on paper, but it also seems like so much mental work for a DM to be able to do.
I mean, it isn't, it isn't. Like, you don't have, you give up a lot of control when you go to a plot generator and say, what's the plot?
Right.
And then you get sort of a rough outline of what's supposed to happen. And then you're kind of done. Like, there's some mental work of, okay, well, how am I going to link these various ideas together? But that comes out, you can't plan too far because you also don't know who the characters are.
Right.
I can't, I don't know who's playing. I don't know who's going to be what. I have zero clue. So I could only prep so far. And then first episode, we find out what's happening. And we also made a decision that we were only going to play D&D once.
Okay.
That there are hundreds of games out there. And we've actually only done D&D twice. We did it as our first episode because we were testing the concept, and there are so many resources for D&D that randomize things that it was easy to be like, well, we don't have to think of a ton of things.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to create things from scratch. We just have to use what's available. And we left D&D behind. The only other time we've come back to it is when we were approached to write a book that was prompts. So the Ultimate Random Encounters book through Simon & Schuster is ours. And then to promote the book, we said we would use it. And since it's fantasy oriented,
Uh-huh.
the easiest one to do is D&D, right?
Yeah.
Like we went back to do D&D. But at this point, we've been doing Very Random Encounters for 8 years now.
Wow.
We've played 37 different games. every season is a new game. And people are like, well, where should I start? And I'm like, what genre do you enjoy? Because we've done it. Do you like
Yeah.
horror? We have horror seasons. Do you like sci-fi? We have sci-fi seasons. Superheroes? Did it. Spies? Done it. Fantasy? Done it, done it, done it. Like, what do you look for?
Yeah.
What are you interested in? Start there because none of the seasons are connected. We start over every season. Every first episode, you are hearing us learn who we are, and you are watching us create the characters, and then you are living with those characters for however long that season lasts.
How long does a season typically last?
So they are generally we average around 20 episodes, 20-hour long episodes.
Hmm.
The longest we just completed our longest one, which is our Violence Ball season. So it was a fake game called Violence Ball, which is sort of full contact with death football. That one went long. We went 32 episodes, I think, for
Okay.
that one. And then we also in the middle have mini seasons where we just play a short game for a short amount of time. We'll bring a guest on and be like, we don't want to make you sit through a whole season, so we're just gonna play something short with you, and then we'll be done. And so we played a ton. I've just played a ton of RPGs at this point of all shapes and sizes. And in doing all of that, I would have friends who are like, "Oh, I want to play a Sailor Moon RPG. You've played a ton of games. What's a good Sailor Moon RPG?" And I
Right.
was like, "Well, guess what? There are none. They're all bad." And they're like, "Well, can you make something?" And I'm like, "Oh, sure, I'll throw something together."
Uh-huh.
And a year later, I realized I've done a lot of work for a simple hack. Maybe I should do something with this. And that's actually how I ended up writing Glitter Hearts. So
Okay.
I wrote my first RPG in 2019. I will tell you, for those paying attention, uh, I started my game hobby career when I was 49. Um, your life changes a lot as you age. Don't assume people are like, oh, I'm turning 40, my life is over. I'm like, I had no idea
Yeah.
at the end of the 40s I would be a podcaster and a hobby game designer and have a game out that people were buying at conventions. So yeah, I wrote Glitter Hearts. It started as a Sailor Moon hack just to play with my friends, but I had done so much work for it that I'm like, there's actually something here
Right.
that I should maybe do something with. So I did my first ever Kickstarter, which was
Okay.
awful because Kickstarting is terrible. It's one of the worst things ever devised. Um, and it was successful. Like people were on board, and I was very, very excited for my game to finally come out in March of 2020. Something else happened in March of 2020 that would derail my plans very much so. The
Okay.
game did come out, but I could do zero for promotion for
Right.
it. But luckily, it also hit at a time where people were just looking for things to do
Yeah,
at
yeah.
home. So it picked up a following from there. Like it's just started, people were like, sure, we're just trying all sorts of new things.
Yeah.
Let's try your game. And people really liked it. And I was, and ultimately I got a judge's spotlight award at the Ennies, which was great.
That's awesome.
And then from there, publishers were like, oh, let's do something with this. And I was like, let's talk. So after Glitter Hearts, in almost all of my game designs are generally, let's play X game. Is there a good game that does that? And I will say, no, actually, there's not. They're all bad. So the second one that came up is that a bunch of friends are like, I really want to do like a Scooby Doo type game, and there's nothing out there. There really isn't. And I'm like, yeah, mystery games are kind of hard to do, and it's also sort of hard to get the Scooby Doo vibe. and I made the connection that there is a game that does it okay, but it's not fun to play, and that was Call of Cthulhu. And I'm like, the
Uh-huh.
system for Call of Cthulhu is good, but it's a misery to play because it's a horror game. So what if I took Call of Cthulhu and actually made it fun? And that was the spawn of the idea that eventually became the mystery business. So I sort of took the things that I liked out of Call of Cthulhu, and like Marvel Superheroes is a percentile dice system, one of my all-time favorites in the world. And Call of Cthulhu is a percentile dice system. And I'm like, I enjoy this mechanic, and it also makes it very easy to see whether you succeed or fail. Like there isn't any math. Is the two numbers above or below the number that you have? Yes or no? Yes, pass, no, fail. Easy done. Um, and then the mystery business thing that I was like, okay, so kind of the flow of all Scooby Doo episodes is they start scared and then they end up not scared and trapping the creature. And I'm like, that is the thing. What is that thing? And I realized that one of the things I hated most and still don't like about Call of Cthulhu is the sanity rating. Like,
Mm-hmm.
as you discover how the world works, you lose sanity. And my brain went, okay, but what if when they found clues, they lost fear? And so that became the fear mechanic that it's the heart of the mystery business. As you discover clues, your fear goes down because you're beginning to understand that this isn't a real monster.
Uh-huh.
This is a capitalist pig trying to make money off of the backs of simple people. And so in the mystery business, as you find clues, your fear lowers. And so when you're confronted with the monster, you roll to see if you're afraid. If you are afraid, you run. Uh, if you're not afraid, you can stick around. And also, the biggest part of the mystery business is there's no combat. There's no combat in that game because
Uh-huh.
there's no combat in the source materials. That is not what that game is there for. There's no combat. You just run and hide. That is the main mechanic of of getting away from the monster. There's a chase. If you get caught, your hit points are near misses. So every time you get close to being captured, you mark off a near miss, and if all your near misses are out, then you are captured by the criminal, and then your friends have to rescue you.
Okay.
But there's no combat, there's no violence because that's not what the source material is.
Right, right.
And so it's a good, like, I've had a lot of people who are like, this is a really good game for kids because they don't, it's easy to understand. Like on the character sheet, it's a percentile dice. So you have a number for your stats. So for like brawn, if you have 50, if you want to do a brawn check, you just have to roll above 50. Like it's right there in front of you. There's no math. There's very little math, I should say. There is some math with the chase and stuff, but it's just really an easy way to sort of get in, play a mystery game. And I always say to people, like, if you don't have an idea for an adventure, go to any Scooby Doo wiki, randomly pull up an episode, and it will outline exactly what happened in that episode. And then you just sort of like, okay, this is what we're playing. Because nobody cares. Like, you're not going to you're not going to play the episode the way it happened on TV.
Right.
The plot line is all you care about, and then it will be its own different thing by the time you're done.
Yeah,
And unlike it half an hour, it will still take you 2 to 2.5 hours to get through an episode because people goof around and do stuff
yeah.
and talk, and it's not. You'll have plenty of time. Um, and then because Pokemon, I mean, I've been a fan of the series ever since it came out. It's different because I was an adult when it came out. So it
Mhm.
came out in '98. I was solidly in my late 20s when it came out. But it was just super, super, super charming. I just love that series. And for years, everybody's like coming up with convoluted and complicated Pokemon games. And
Uh-huh.
again, when everybody asks, is there a good Pokemon game? I would say no, they're all bad because I think they're all bad. They're all way too complicated. And so that was the birth of my next game, Doma Sky Tamers, was me trying to unlock what I think a good monster collecting, taming, battling game should be. That's not so complicated in combat that you spend hours and hours and hours in combat and you're trying to mimic the video game perfectly. My whole thing is I wanted to keep the feel of those games. What is good about those games? What is comforting about those games? What are the things that people enjoy? And so I ultimately end up in a dice pool system. So, kind of like Tales from the Loop, uh, all the White Wolf games, you have stats in front of you, you pull dice from them, you roll them. If you get a 5 or higher, you have a success. If you don't get 5s or higher,
Mhm.
you don't succeed. It's a very simple system in that way that you're just trying to build the biggest dice pool that you can to because more dice means you're more likely to succeed. With the sort of caveat, if you get ones, there is complications added. Like it's just like, oh, something went slightly wrong. But also, some of your stats are D4s. D4s cannot ever get 5s. But
Okay.
but they are likely to get 1s.
Yeah.
So when you're using things that you aren't good at or skills that are a D4, like you are more likely to get a complication for those, which is, just sort of helps drive the narration of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So they're sort of like narrative tools to sort of push, like, okay, you're doing a thing you're not good at, you are likely to get a consequence because you rolled a 1. And so that's the heart of that game. I wrote a lot of pages. I made 100 monsters. uh,
Jesus.
so there's 100 monsters in the first set of rules. And because Glitter Hearts was successful, Japanime Games took over physical publishing of Glitter Hearts. So, like, we have distribution systems, we have connections. We want to get your game into stores. And I was like, I've never written a game before, so I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
So that's been very, very successful for them. And they were like, oh, do you have other RPGs? And at the time I was writing the mystery business, and I'm like, that's just not anime. Like, there's not an anime that is Scooby Doo, right? Like, that doesn't exist.
Okay.
There are some detective shows,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
they're just not right.
It's not the same vibe.
There's a specific American Scooby Doo, Josie and the Pussycats, Captain Caveman. There's a specific formula that just does not exist in anime.
Right.
I said, well, I'm not doing that, but I do have a thing that is exactly anime. I'm making a monster collecting game. And so they are partnering. We entered a partnership and we are going into starting to kickstart that. You can follow it now on Kickstarter, but it goes live, I think, September 9th.
Okay.
And then you can actually back the full game.
Okay. I have a couple questions.
Sure.
So, what kind of influence? So, you said I want to talk first about Star Wars because you started with Star Wars, so I'm going to take us back a little bit.
Okay.
What was it about Star Wars and the way that kind of story is told that resonates with you so much, and how do you see how it kind of influences your storytelling today?
So I think Star Wars was the first time that I ever really saw the hero's journey played out
Hmm.
in a magic fantasy way. And what that sort of does to me and in my games is I don't particularly like grimdark games. I don't like people super struggling to be good at things. Like,
Hmm.
that's just called real life. I want to play a game where I'm competent and can do things and can have a big effect on the world, because that is the heart of Star Wars, a group of people against all odds succeed and they end sort of authoritarianism. Uh and that has always followed me through. I sort of am not I'm not a huge fan of the hopelessness of horror. I'm not a huge fan of the anti-hero. I think when see things like, like The Watchmen, I think The Watchmen did tremendous damage, and the era in the 90s of the anti-hero did tremendous damage to how we understand what a hero should be.
So
I
you
think
don't like Warhammer or Man of Steel is what we're getting here, right?
I've never seen Man of Steel, and I've never really played Warhammer. They are not my thing.
Yeah.
Um, but the thing that I don't like about them is, in particular, Watchmen, they are designed for adults who have a context for them,
Uh-huh.
and they ended up in the hands of people who don't understand context, but also deeply, deeply, deeply need a moral center to latch onto for the story to make sense.
Mhm.
And when you have a property like Watchmen where everybody is bad by design, that is the story. Nobody is good. When it's in the hands of teens, we have to find something that is good. And so people would be like, well, Rorschach's the hero. I'm like, really isn't. He's a terrible, terrible, terrible person. But he's the only one that actually comes close to doing the right thing.
Mhm.
And hundreds of boys have latched on to, you can be a terrible person, but as long as you do the right thing, you're good. And it's like, no, you're really not. You're really, really, really not. And so Star Wars just had it's a very 50s B plot black and white story, and that appeals to me in the way that it's not ambivalent who the bad guys are, even
Right.
though people argue now that it is. I'm like, it's really not. Like, you didn't learn those lessons very well. It's really not great. Um and even in that universe, you can play with where the line is. Like, there is a lot of stories to be told. Okay, where is the actual line?
Mhm.
But it's very clear that there is a line.
Right.
But when you have like all the grimdark stuff from the 90s, it was like, lines don't exist. Everybody is bad.
Right. You're all shades of evil.
You're all shades of evil. And it's like, there are millions of people who do good things because we as a species are inherently herd animals. We we have a need for community, and we have a need for helping people because that's how we survive.
Mhm.
And it is interesting to take on stories of, it's easy to abuse power, but when every story is everybody always abuses power, we sort of lost the heart
Yeah.
of what we're doing. And it gets really difficult to tell people, like, no, there is a line. There is a line, and not everybody abuses power. And those that do abuse power, it's not acceptable.
Right.
That is not like, they aren't an anti-hero.
Yeah.
They aren't working towards something better.
It's not a means to an end. That is the
It's not a means to an end.
yeah,
Like,
that's the problem.
it's a problem. We see it play out with like the deification of Elon Musk. I'm like, he's not a good person.
Mhm.
He stumbles into doing a few good things for the wrong reasons and makes money. None of those are good. Like, it's really not helping people.
Right.
But a lot of people are like, the ends justify the means. They're going to get there. It's going to be, you're going to have this great, they're pushing us towards Star Trek. And I'm like, we have not a lot of bad to go through. And then even in Star Trek, there was a Third World War that really changed everything. So, like, let's keep it clear what we're going for.
Which part of Star Trek did we want here, guys?
Yeah. Like, I'll jump to the future where there's no money, but like there was
A lot of
a lot
pain.
of bad that got up there.
So let me ask you this then. You've said that the X-Men system was like your favorite, one of your favorite
Yeah.
systems, if not
Yeah.
your favorite system.
Yeah.
What was it about that system that really seemed to lay its hooks into you? And how do you see, what about that have you kind of drawn on for the systems you're creating today?
So the thing that I love about Marvel superheroes is it doesn't matter what the power is. It is in the same rating as everything else. It's a percentile dice system. It's got a convoluted chart that I love. So you roll it, and if it's this, it's a green, which is a hit. Yellow is a better hit, and a red is a critical hit. And then
Mhm.
if it's in the white category, it's a miss. And what's so brilliant about that design is it doesn't matter what the power is because it will have a rating and it will fall on that chart. And so it doesn't matter if somebody's like, well, I want to be able to cause small explosions. Great. Write down cause small explosions. It will have a rating. And then you roll on the chart and it will say, do I cause a small explosion or not? Like there's so much freedom in the fact that no matter what you come up with,
Yeah.
it will have a rating and the rating goes on the chart. And that always fuels my idea of it doesn't matter what you want to make, it will fit into the system, and the system is easy enough that it compensates for all of that. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter what you call it, it's got these ratings and it slides into the system. So it's one of the things that one of the reasons why I did do glitter hearts in the Powered by the Apocalypse system. It doesn't matter what you necessarily call the move.
Right.
It slides into the system. It is the same die roll for everything. 2d6 plus whatever stat, and then the move adds flavor. So it is a simple narrative system that doesn't worry too much about the hard coding. Like D&D, it matters if it's slashing or bludgeoning or piercing. Like those things matter because there's resistances and there's layers on top of each other. And that's fine because it's easy to sort of know what this does and what the exceptions are. It's layering on top of an incredible system of you roll a d20, you add a thing. Did you get over the DC? Yes or no? Like that is the question that's asked, and everything in D&D layers into that. Where D&D sort of goes off the rails, and a lot of them is they just keep adding things on top of it.
Uh-huh.
Like here's the general rule: roll a d20, add a modifier. Did you beat the DC? Yes or no? That is the basic rule. And then there's 200 pages of adding on top of that rule,
Mhm.
which makes that system somewhat cumbersome
Uh-huh.
because you have to remember what are all the exceptions to the rule. Here's the base rule. And one of the things that I like in my games is there is a rule and there's really not that many exceptions to it.
Okay.
You roll
Can you
these, you see what it is, and you make a decision.
Okay. Can you give us an example of what that might look like in the game so people can kind of understand if they haven't played Glitter Hearts or Mystery Business?
Yeah, so Glitter Hearts, the Power by the Backlist system is you roll 2d6 and you add a stat. And so if the final result is a 6 or lower, you fail. If the result is between 7 and 10, it's a mixed success. If it's 10 or above, it's a complete success. And if it's 12 or above, which is, kind of hard to get, it's a fantastic success. And so no matter what you do, you're always rolling 2d6, adding the appropriate stat, and then you look at where you fell.
Hmm.
Fail, mixed success, success. That's it. And then you tell the story. You say what happens based off of where it fell in that chart. And where the layers of complexity come on is, what can I add to that die roll to improve my chances? So a lot of moves in Power of the Apocalypse are you get a +1 to your roll, or you give somebody a +1 to the roll. So they're adding to be able to succeed more. But it's always just to not get into the 6 area to get a 7 or above. And
Hmm.
that is the basic rule. You always want to try to get 7 or above. And so it doesn't really matter what the move is. All the move is doing is somehow adding to that base die roll. How can I improve my chances? Um, and so for the mystery business, you can make up any stats you want, because the thing is got a rating next to it. If if you make a skill that you say, okay, I'm going to make a skill called climbing, you put a number next to it, and they have to get above that number. It does not matter what skill you make, because it's always in the same, going to have a rating, and you need to be above it to succeed. That's it.
Okay.
So like the mystery business is very simple in that way, because it is, hi, you're doing a brawn check. Well, your brawn is set at 70. You're not great at brawn, so you just need to roll above 70. Or if you're a super beefy character, okay, your strength's at 30. You're very likely to roll above a 30.
Right.
So you're very good at that. You're likely to succeed. And it does, I can make those skills and stats anything, because the base core is still, you'll have a number next to it and you need to roll above it. And for Doma Sky Tamers, it's a dice pool system. I don't care what you're pulling from. I don't care what you call them. People will have a background stat, and the background can be anything that they want. It can be like, I'm a camper. I've camped all my life. Great. That's just got a die rating next to it,
Hmm.
and you can pull it into your die pool, because you're just going to roll them all together and hope you get a 5 or higher. So it does not matter what that's called. It's going to have a thing next to it, and that thing can be pulled into a dice pool that then rolls into the base system and allows you to know if you succeeded or failed. And so I tried to keep them very light that way, so it is easier. Once you sort of grasp the mechanic, you have the freedom then to be like, okay, this is a stretch, but I'm going to pull in this skill because I think I'm applying it this way, because they really want to try to get more dice in their pool.
Uh-huh.
And that's a conversation that I find interesting to have with the GM.
Yeah.
Like, you are trying to be creative to get things into your dice pool, and that creativity is what makes TTRPGs fun.
Right. Okay. So I want to talk to you about the process of launching a Kickstarter, because you ran a successful one. What is that like?
I've run 2 successful
Yes.
ones, and I'm hoping for a third.
um, I want to know what that process is like. As someone who's never run a
Terrible.
Kickstarter, how does that go? What does that look like?
Terrible. It is
Okay.
awful. So Kickstarter doesn't have a lot of desire to help you.
Okay.
And the sort of dirty secret of Kickstarter, and it's not really a secret, it's just people don't know. Only 30% of projects on Kickstarter fund.
Hmm.
That's it. And they're number one in the business. They have the highest percentage of everybody else.
Right.
And so they aren't particularly interested in helping you. They're just like, it should have a video and your pricing should be appropriate. Have fun. Uh, and then you're just like, okay. The thing about Kickstarter, what's super stressful about Kickstarter is, in a 30-day campaign, only the first 2 days matter and the last 2 days matter.
Uh-huh.
You'll either fund in the first 2 days or you'll fund in the last 2 days, and nothing happens in between.
Yeah.
It is just sitting there watching nothing, because everybody who really wants it hit it in the first 2 days. They were like, I'm behind it. And then it's 20 some days of trying to convince people that you will fund, and a lot of people watching it to see if you've tipped over the weird threshold they have in their mind where they think, oh, you're close to funding, so it's likely to happen. And so the
Um,
last 2 days are all the people judging, is this likely to happen now if you didn't fund in the first two? And so Glitter Hearts funded early, Mystery Business funded literally the last day.
okay.
I managed to cross over the snowball threshold, whatever people set that as, and then I rolled over the edge and into the end zone. But it is a lot of desperately trying to get eyes on your project. With the death of Twitter, there is no longer a centralized social media hub
Uh-huh.
to find people who want your games. And so Glitter Hearts was almost easier because everybody was on Twitter and I could just post things to Twitter and they would spread, and all the people, everybody was looking at it and would see it and be like, oh, cool, I found this thing. Then with the death of Twitter and the rise of nothing, you are just trying to hit every social media, every possible way somebody could maybe find your game, and hope in the noise they'll see it.
Right.
And so there's a lot of discussions around what are stretch goals. Should you have stretch goals? Like, there's so much that goes into the decision process of what do I think are good stretch goals, and are those stretch goals actually something I can do?
Uh-huh.
Because if you are wildly successful, there are hundreds of projects that have failed because they were so wildly successful and they could not meet the stretch goal work. They couldn't do it. They overpromised, not thinking they would get that high, and now suddenly they have thousands of customers and they've promised to produce 17 more things,
Yeah.
but it's their hobby and they can't do it. They're like, well, I can do it, but it's going to take 6 years for me to
Wow.
get to do that.
Yeah.
And you have maybe 2 before people are like, I want my money back. You've not given me the thing.
Yeah.
And so there are so many places that fail because of their success. And so part of also thinking about Kickstarter is what's enticing to get more money, what's possible.
Yeah.
If I say I'll write an entire second book if we hit the stretch goal, can I actually do that?
Yeah.
Will I have the time? Do I have something to put in a second book? Like, I don't know. My stretch goal for Glitter Hearts was like, I have elemental powers, but if we hit a stretch goal, I'll write an entire section that's emotional powers. And we hit it, and then my brain was like, oh, I now actually have to do that. And I had no ideas for it. I have no idea what I'm writing.
What are emotions?
None. What are they? What are they? Well, what emotions make interesting superhero powers? Like,
Yeah.
what is this? And so it was like full on 2 months of panic where I was like, I promised I was writing something and I have zero idea. So we are just gonna knuckle down and figure something out, aren't we? Um, and there's also a lot of people who are very anti-stretch goal. Like, this is the product.
Yeah.
You either want it as it is or you don't. And there's the fine line of, a lot of people are burned out on DLC, and stretch goals feel like DLC. Well, if you get this, then you'll actually get a full experience.
Right.
And so there's a lot of sort of what is a nice add-on that's interesting, but doesn't feel like, well, now this is actually a good complete game.
Right.
Like I was keeping things from you before, but if you get to here, then you'll really get a good game. And that's a really delicate line to walk with people's emotions, especially people you don't know
Yeah.
and you have no idea who's looking at it. So a lot of Kickstarter is just having a very clear vision and guessing that it will find an audience and hoping that it will. And that not a lot of people are out there to actually help you. There's just they just are like, you know what, figure it out. We don't have time.
Yeah.
And we don't have interest. Like Kickstarter doesn't care if you fund or not.
Yeah.
They get their money off the ones that do, and 30% of like a million projects is still a lot,
Right.
but they get their 10% no matter what. And you have to also figure out your actual budgets. That's probably the ugliest thing. So, like for Glitter Hearts, I'm like, okay, well, it will cost me $9,000 to pay for all the artists, to pay for layout, to pay for shipping, and to pay for printing. Okay, then I need to increase that by 10% because Kickstarter will take its stuff. And then
Mhm.
I need to decrease it by 20% because 20% of people who pledge won't pay.
Okay.
So my actual number is probably $11,000. Even though I know I only need X, I have to increase it to compensate for everybody taking their piece and for people who won't pay. I mean, I've been very lucky in both of my projects that only 5% of people didn't pay.
Okay.
So I came out ahead of the curve um, in both of my games of people who were just like, I pledged, but I had no intention of paying. And you just sort of have to compensate for the fact that you may not get the money
Right.
that
Yeah.
you think. So you have to increase your pledge amount. And then you also have to think, okay, is that now too high for people to actually think,
You're gonna make
you
the
know, like,
goal.
wow, $15,000 for a book? That seems kind of nuts. It's
Yeah.
like, well, that's what it costs. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Um, so yeah, Kickstarter is a very, very stressful process, and it feels great when it funds.
Yeah.
Like, I did all this work, and it wasn't for nothing, and it's terrible when it doesn't. Like, you don't really know what went wrong. You
Right.
don't really know why people didn't. Like, it's rare that people are going to mention anything to you, positively or negatively, about your campaign.
Right.
You either did or you didn't, and you have to guess what went wrong or what went right and assume, okay, I'll try it again, I guess. Um, so yeah, Kickstarter is it's a terrible process, but it's the only process that we have. And I get very, very, very frustrated when very successful companies kickstart because they are really just using it as a pre-order generator because
Yeah.
they know they're going to get it. Like Red Dragon Inn, you've made 7 expansions and they always sell. Like you could just do pre-order. Like you don't
Why are we playing this game?
you don't need it, and it buries a bunch of people who actually really do need it. But also, it's really the only game. Like
Right.
there's not a lot of places. Like it's very hard to get people to come to your website for a pre-order. Like there isn't a built-in mechanism for people to hit an audience like there is just through Kickstarter. Kickstarter is just a place where people go and the algorithm pushes things to them. That's difficult to do on your own. So I
Right.
understand why they do it, but I do get frustrated. I'm like, look, you know, people want Red Dragon in 8. Like they have 1 through 7. It's going to sell, but I get it. Like it's a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, people argue that with Japanime Games is a company. They have
Right.
money. Do we have enough money to do it without a Kickstarter? Not really. It
Right.
is necessary to do a Kickstarter for some of these things, but it is one of those things like, well, this is the game that we have,
Yeah,
and there isn't a other game in town. There aren't there aren't publishers, there aren't book groups that are willing to take that many risks anymore if you're not proven. They want
that's
you to
true.
prove it first and then they'll buy in.
Okay. Well, Greg, we're gonna kind of get ready to wrap up here. I'm gonna ask you. I have three more questions for you,
Okay.
and then we're gonna open up to chat questions. Um, my first question is: are there any dream projects or collaborations that you'd love to pursue in the future?
I mean, Dumbest Sky Tamers is my dream project right now. Like,
Right.
I want it to fund. I have 4 more region books produced in my brain. Like, I know where I want to continue taking it. A lot of people are like, "Is there going to be Glitter Hearts too?" I'm like, I've said everything I want to say for Glitter Hearts. I have nothing that I can add to it too. Um, but this one is Dumbest Sky Tamers is a bigger, like, I can always make monsters. I can always make more interesting regions. Like, I can build out this world a lot. And so
Right.
this is a really big one for me. It's one that I'm very, very invested in. And I really wanted to be able to just keep building in this world that I made. Um, I don't, I've worked with a lot of people. I don't know. My process of writing is so very me. Um, I don't know what it looks like to work with somebody else to
Right.
write. Um, I'm always open for like what are your ideas for what's a fun adventure, but I don't know what that looks like for me to have somebody else write
Well,
in
well,
in my world.
let me ask you this then. So with Doma Sky trainers coming out, is there
Mhm.
world's your oyster? Is there someone that you would want to run a game for you?
Oh boy. Um God, there's like a million people that I would love to have to run games. Like any of the big ones, like if you're famous, you want to run a game of mine, do it. Have at it. Have a great time. Um for I would love to see what I would love to see is one of the big actual plays like Adventure Zone or Critical Role or Dimension 20 to actually take even for like a 3 episode thing to take one of my games
Right.
and just have fun in it. I mean, they're all very, very, very D&D focused because that's the market.
Right.
But I would love any of them to be like, we are going to just to walk away from this to to explore a weird indie game set that has a lot more freedom and that's not fantasy. It is not fantasy. And just do it for a little bit.
Yeah.
Do it for 3 episodes and bow out. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be long, but I would just love to see anybody that has a lot of clout behind them to really. I would love it if it was my games. Any
Yeah.
like really just take any of the smaller things and be like, we're gonna spend a little time in here and see what it does.
That's so funny because I could see any of those channels. Like, I don't know why, but you could see any of them being like, let's play Glitter Hearts for like a
Yeah,
3 episode thing and just having a fucking blast with it and like doing something really fun with it.
yeah. It's a superhero game.
Yeah.
It's a Power Rangers Sailor Moon game. Like this is your
Yeah.
childhood.
Yeah.
Just play it and it does it really well. Like it's not hard to play. Just take it for a spin. Please.
All right. Um, can you share a pivotal moment, a turning point in your career that has kind of shaped the way you approach content creation?
Um so my theater degree, I got a degree in theater arts. That is my college degree. I was an actor for a very, very long time. And then I said, "Ooh, acting stinks. I hate this career. The only thing I like is being on stage, and everything else is bad, and I don't like it." So I left it. I'm like, I'm just gonna get a day job, and I did. Um, but I think one of the pivotal things was actually doing a podcast where I could perform again in a situation that I didn't expect to be in. Like for me, performance was always going to be on stage, right? Like I was a stage actor. I did musicals. I This was the way that I viewed performance. And so when I actually did a podcast for the first time and then we started Very Random Encounters, that was a huge turning point in my life because I was performing again, but in my way and how I wanted to do it and in my control. And it sort of clicked in this, okay, now I want to also make things that I would enjoy performing. And some of my game design came out of like, is this just fun to play? And would it be fun to play in front of other people?
Mhm.
And I, that sort of also drives a lot of how I view game design and how I viewed my sort of hobby career. Like I'm very happy in my day job. I love my day job career. I've been doing my career for 21 years now. And I wouldn't give that up. Like I have a very fulfilling day job career. And I had sort of given up the idea of performance because being in a play means all of your nights are, you're in rehearsal all night long, and then you're doing performances for a month. And like that was just not going to be a sustainable idea of what I could do for performance. And podcasting, I mean, I came to it late. Again, I was 46, 47, but it was like, oh, I can do a weekly performance that is manageable and it's improv. I don't have to memorize a script. I don't have to do all of the things that happen with an actual performance. I'm doing live improv and I can use all of the skills that I was actually trained to do for a 6-year degree and actually put it into practice. And so that was a big turning point for sort of rediscovering where I was, who I was, what I wanted to do, but in a way that I didn't expect it to be. Like I didn't expect to be a podcaster, and I am, and I love it.
All right. Well then, Greg, that's going to bring us to our last question. I I knew I was forgetting something in our little pre-interview stuff. Forgot to tell you that this is the question. This is the big question.
Okay.
So I apologize for that, but this is the one that goes up on TikTok.
Okay.
Um, so Greg, what message or impact do you hope to leave through your content on the geek space?
Diversity is incredibly important to me. As a gay man who has felt a lot of the shunning and weirdness that happens, and I'm a white guy, so I have it a lot easier than a lot of other people. Whenever I make a game, I want people to be able to see themselves in my game and immediately know I'm welcome here. I am accepted for who I am. And that is what I want to do in my games. I want you to learn them quickly. I want you to feel like you're not intimidated. And I want you to be able to see yourself in this world as a person who belongs. That is what I want.
Awesome. Fantastic. All right, Greg. That is going to bring us to the end of our interview. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for just having this conversation and letting
Thank
me
you.
kind of dive into your
Yeah.
life. Um, we are going to open up the chat to viewer questions. So if you guys have any questions for Greg, go ahead and start putting those in the chat. While those come in, we are going to do the dicey. Already got questions coming in.
Okay.
Buddy of mine, Tech, is a friend of mine who's creating his own system and is trying to do Kickstarter. So I'm sure he'll have plenty of questions. While those questions come in, though, go ahead and roll me a d20 while we do our dicey
Okay.
question segment.
15.
Okay. I feel like we've already answered this during the course of our interview, but what is your favorite
Okay.
movie or TV series genre?
Um, so my favorite movie is Star Wars,
Yep.
but my favorite TV genre. So this is the thing. I really like a good mystery show. Like Only Murders in the Building, love. Murder She Wrote, love. Uh Midsummer Murders in the BBC, love. I love all of those sort of wacky, there's no way this murder could actually have happened in the real world, but we're just going to go for it because it makes a good complicated story and they're fun reveals. I will always I will always sit down and watch a murder mystery on TV.
Okay.
Um the whole like Knives Out series, I'm like, this is crack. This
Yeah.
is I will watch this. I'm so mad that Netflix canceled the White House series. I forget what it was called because that series was so good. But like, there's a structure to mysteries that applies to like I've said this before. My friends say this. Every TTRPG session is a mystery.
Yeah.
It is a mystery. They have to figure out what's going on and then figure out how to stop it or solve it. Like every game's structured like a mystery. There are characters that come in that give clues and information and leave. Some of them important, some of them are not. And I just love the structure of a good dumb murder mystery because a lot of them are really dumb and it's like cool. That could never happen, but heck yeah, we live in a world that it could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Give me one more D20 roll and then we'll
Okay.
go jump over to these questions because they are some good questions.
5.
Favorite video game and most overrated video game.
I mean, favorite video game of all time is Pokemon Emerald. That is
Okay.
my favorite game. I've played that game a lot.
Okay.
I've played that game a lot. Close behind that is Final Fantasy Tactics.
Okay.
I've purchased Final Fantasy Tactics on like every system that it ever exists on. I've paid so much money for that one game, but you know, I will buy it every time. I'm like, yes, I love this game. Most overrated, that's tough because I don't like I've never like there's nothing about Mass Effect that interested me.
Okay.
The All of the choices just felt like okay, you'll just take the green path to the same ending or the red path to the same ending or the blue path to the same ending. Like there are
You are
choices,
hurting me so
not
bad. I want you to know
but
that.
not really because it's all going to come to the pre-programmed ending. So no matter really what you do, you're going to end up with black hole death sun, like whatever the ending is, because they can only write one
Yeah.
and they can only make one. So no matter where you walk, you are going to be railroaded back to this point. And
Hmm.
that is just not my thing. Like,
Yeah.
don't give me the illusion of choice when it's just swapping out palettes on the
Right.
same
Yeah.
storyline. Like you can romance this person, but they're going to behave the same way as this person and this person because we can really only write so much dialogue and we can really only do so many things.
Right.
Um, like those things broach on the thing that I really love, which is the freedom of TTRPGs.
Yeah.
And like you can't get there, so I don't even want to start.
Yeah.
And
That's
like
fair.
everybody hated the end of Mass Effect 3, and I'm like, justified.
All right. We got a bunch of questions. These are from Tech. Tech
Yeah.
Frost. Um, what is a good measure for a goal on a created TTRPG? Should you base it on the amount of content you are starting with?
So you have to decide if you're paying yourself or not, and then how much is that worth? So you're not going to be able to change artists, and you're not going to be able to change layout costs. Like you're going to find a person, and they're going to say it costs this much, and that's it. So you have to pay. You have to figure out like what is my editor going to cost? What is my layout artist? What are my artists going to cost? What is my publishing going to cost? There are just hard numbers that are going to be the baseline of what you absolutely have to make. And then you have to decide, do I get paid now? Or do I get paid and pay off after it funds and I can sell it out in the world, but I've got it out in the world? And that's going to decide what your base level funding is. There are certain things that cannot change. Shipping will vary, but you sort of have a rough idea. Printing costs and the people you're hiring. Once you have all of those, you will look at that number and say, oof, that's a big ask. Or, you know what? That's reasonable. I'm going to ask for myself to get paid a little bit of money. So for Glitter Hearts, I did not pay myself at all. My first funding goal was I'm making no money off this, and my husband is doing the editing, and I'm not paying him either. So I'm just paying for art, layout, and printing costs, and that is going to be my base goal. And the stretch goals were me saying, okay, I will do this extra work and I will then also pay myself. And that's where I came up with my first stretch goals. It's difficult because the more people you get to buy your product, you are also increasing your shipping cost
Right.
and your printing cost. So you sort of have to have a delicate slider of, okay, if I get 20 people, that's $200 in printing costs. If I get 100 people, that's $1,000 in printing costs that I have to compensate for.
Hmm.
And so you're trying to also set your product prices in a way that the more people who buy your stuff, it sort of already automatically compensates for that. So it's a lot of sitting down and thinking, oh, what is my actual price per unit? And then generally, when you figure out your price per unit, you multiply it by 5, and that should be your retail cost. And sometimes you look at that and go, nobody will pay that. Uh, so, like, a hardcover book is way more expensive. And so to produce one hardcover book, it's $10 to print everything. Multiply by 5, that's a $50 RPG book
Right.
where you're making 100 pages. So it looks thin. Is that worth it? Maybe.
Hmm.
Um, but you sort of have to think about what are those price points. So I always added a little bit higher. Like I usually win about 6 times for soft cover, and I usually win about 3 times for hardcover, so that they're close to each other,
Right.
but still somewhere in that feels reasonable for what people will want to buy. And your own sense of, if I came upon this book in the wild and looked at it, what would I pay for it? Would I pay $50 for this? Or would I be like, nope, that's
Yeah.
too expensive. I'd pay 30 for it. And that is where you sort of need to figure out, okay, this is it.
Yeah.
This is my price points.
Okay. What do you think breaks the mold for TTRPGs the most, and what would catch your eye?
The thing that breaks the mold for me is the setting. The rule system, I don't care about. I'm probably going to ignore it. I ignore my own rules all the time. I've run my own games for people, and they're like, that's not the rule. I'm like, I don't care. And I wrote it. I get to break it. Um, I think what will always catch my eye first is if it's an interesting setting or has an interesting idea about what the game is trying to say. And I think a lot of game designers don't think about what they want their game to say. They think, oh, it's a fantasy game, so it just should be fantasy.
Hmm.
That's not enough. What do you want your game to say? Do you want it to be heroic? Do you want the people to always win? Do you want it grimdark? Do you want it to be an uphill battle the entire way? Well, your game had better do that. Otherwise, your game doesn't do what you think you wanted to say. And so when you're developing anything, you need to think, what am I saying with this game? And do my rules support what I want to say with this game? And if they don't, you've got bad rules. But at the heart, you need to figure out what your game is. What is it? What am I trying to do with it? And then how do I make rules that allow people who aren't me to do that? One of the big things about Glitter Hearts is there is a team system where you have to help each other
Yeah.
to get power points. And everybody who plays Glitter Hearts has the first episode of a Sailor Moon thing where they don't think they have to work together, and then they realize at the end of the episode, oh, we need to have been working together this entire time. That is what I want my game to say.
Yeah.
And it does. People always realize at the end, we should have been working together this entire time. Exactly. That is what I wanted my game to say. And it does.
Mhm.
And so I think any game that sort of has a perspective that is a twist on an idea and is presenting that idea in an interesting way catch my eye. Like I played Daggerheart at Gen Con. I'm not that impressed by it. It is just a fantasy game because I don't know that they know what it wants to say other than it's easy for AP performers to play it.
Right.
And that's not enough. It's not really telling me at its heart anything beyond what D&D or Pathfinder already tells me. And so I may pick it up, I may not. Probably somebody will get it for me as a gift and I'll look at it. But there's nothing about that really says anything to me. Whereas I was at Gen Con and I picked up Jukebox the Musical. It is a karaoke TTRPG. That says something to me. You are making a show.
Yeah.
That got me to buy it immediately. I don't even know how you play the game. I'm like, I'm in because your premise is really interesting. You are telling me something that nobody else in the game design system is telling me. Here's how to put music in a game. Sold. Sold. I'm in. I don't care how the rules are. I will figure it out.
Okay. Okay, we've got one more question from Tech. When it comes to your game's dice system, what made you choose the tiers, multiple success types, instead of the 6 and above as a success? Sorry,
So
why stick to that system?
that was a Power by the Apocalypse thing. And the reason why I stuck with it is because that math had been proven to work.
Mhm.
I could have taken a lot of time to sort of break that apart and really figure out if there's another way to do it. But for my very, very first game, using a system that I know works.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things in this. There's a lot of Power by the Apocalypse game. They all work. And so I knew that that core was solid and my freedom could come everywhere else. Like I hate playbooks, and so I destroyed them for my game. Like there are no playbooks in Glitterheart. You make your character how you want. I hate how every system pretty much universally treats teamwork. I think it is bizarre to me how many games in a collaborative storytelling genre actively discourage people from working together. Your aid and help rules are terrible. And so that was the next thing I knew I wanted to fix. And so I came up with a fix for that in Glitter Hearts. But I didn't want to also take on rewriting a whole new dice system and trying to figure out the
Right.
math
Right. Play test
behind
that
that
out.
because it's just that process is just bad. Like
Yeah.
I mean I did it for Doma Sky Tamers because I was really trying to come up with a system that worked. And the first playtest I sent it to, my first playtesters wrote back immediately, "This game is too hard." And so I like, okay, the dice thing isn't working the way I wanted to. Let's figure that out. And that just adds development time, and I didn't want to do that for Glitter Hearts because it was my first ever, and I didn't want to dive into the weird math that you have to do for figuring out dice systems.
Uh-huh. Okay. Then we have one last question. This is from Grazella. What do you feel like would be the best or most prudent advice you could give other TTRPG creators, like the advice you would have wanted when you started out?
Yeah. I will say two things. One I already said is know what you want to say with your game. The the secret that everybody knows is you cannot copyright game mechanics. So you can steal anything. Like the D&D Creative Commons license, most of that's a joke because they can't copyright rolling a d20. Like you can't.
Yeah.
It's not possible. Like you technically don't have to ask permission to do Powered by the Apocalypse, but you do because if it's too close, they'll be like, you wrote too close to what we wrote. But really, what do you want your game to say? And then have the freedom to write rules around what you that support what your game will say. I think a lot of people get stuck in the it my game should be universal and should fit multiple genres. No. No. Write the game that you want that tells the story that you want out in the world. Write the game that people will have the experience that you think is important, that is close to you. And it will be unique and interesting because you had a point of view that's specifically yours, and there is an audience for it. It may take a while to find them, but there is an audience for it. So trust that the experience you want to present to other people is valid, and everything you write should match what you want the experience to be, what you want your game to say.
Okay. Uh, I think that wraps it up for all the questions we had.
All right.
Greg, this has been an amazing interview. I feel like I learned a lot about like the whole creation process, and it was great, really interesting because it's not something I've ever really even gone into. Um, where can people catch you next? What do you want to plug?
Uh, so Kickstarter, Doma Sky Tamers. It's out there right now. You can follow along. It should launch September 9th. It is my monster taming RPG. It's actually going to be a lot of things. It's a pretty big project. There are card games that are being developed alongside it. It's a pretty big thing. You can find all of links to everything that I'm making. Just go to leatherman.games. That is my gaming site, uh, where I just post things. Resources, all my games are linked there, so you can get that. If you want to hear a chaotic show that's an actual play, listen to Very Random Encounters. Pick a season. They're all wild, they're all different, they're all new. And if you want to hear me talk more about game design stuff and tabletop experiences, Game Mechanics Podcast is the one that Logan and I do. We talk about both Logan and I are game designers as our secondary hobby career. And so we just talk about whatever experiences are in the tabletop world, both board games and TTRPGs, and what we like and what we don't like, and a lot of things like this. Like I just did a whole thing on Daggerheart about the things that I think they did really well and where I think they fell down. And so that game it's a newer podcast, but one that we really enjoy doing.
Okay. I got nothing else. If you got nothing else, thank you guys for joining us for tonight. We'll see you guys later. Remember, love you, geeks. Good night.
Bye.